Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video we're discussing Puzzle Me a Murder, written by Roz Noonan. It's a cozy mystery. It's the first book in the Alice Pepper Lonely Hearts and Puzzle Club mystery series. It's a very long name for a series, and personally I don't really get where the Lonely Hearts part comes into it, but I do understand the Puzzle Club part because the three main characters in this story, they enjoy jigsaw puzzles, and there's many moments in this book where they put together a new jigsaw puzzle. So I like that part of the story, because I do enjoy jigsaw puzzles. I enjoy puzzles of all different sorts, but I also enjoy jigsaw puzzles. And it was that element in the story that made me want to read this in the first place. It's an okay mystery, got good characters, good cozy elements in there as well. I think this ticks a lot of boxes for people who enjoy cozy mysteries. This book starts with quite a shock. In fact, two shocks. So Alice is our main character, and Alice lives in quite a large house with her sister Violet. Alice is a librarian. I think she's the manager of the library, and Violet is a vice principal, and they're sisters, and I think they're in their 60s. They have a friend called Ruby, also in her 60s I think, and Ruby's been spending the night at Alice's house because we find out very early on Ruby was going home from a trip interstate or something, got home earlier than expected, and found her husband with another woman. She didn't see who the woman was, but she ran out and she found herself at her friend Alice's house. And then there's more shocks in store. So it's bad enough that Ruby finds this out, but then the police arrive, track her down, and Ruby finds out her husband has been found dead in their home. And the police suspect foul play. And then they suspect Ruby of murder as well. They don't arrest her, they suspect her. So of course, that's a shock, a double shock for Ruby and Alice and Violet as well. And of course, because it's a cozy mystery, Alice, who's the protagonist, the main protagonist in this story, decides she's going to investigate. She's going to dig into the mystery. She doesn't want her friend Ruby to be arrested for murder. There's a personal connection to Alice and this crime. And I think you find in many cozy mysteries, especially in the first book, it's quite a personal connection between the protagonist and the mystery. I find that a lot in cozy mysteries. So I've already talked about those three main characters, but let's talk about more characters who pop up in this book. So Alice has two granddaughters and they're twins. Their names are Madison and Taylor. Madison works for the police force, and Madison is on this case, this murder case, for quite a while in this story. And Taylor lives in Alice's basement, and Taylor is kind of drifting through life a bit, doesn't know what she wants to do. I think they're in their early 20s in this story. That kind of gives you more of an idea about certain characters in this story as well. And a bit more info on Ruby, Ruby being Alice's best friend and also the person whose husband has been found murdered. Ruby owns a wig business and is quite successful, and so she has quite a lot of money behind her as well. And that kind of ties into the mystery as well. The police suspect something about that as well, tying that the money she has into the mystery. I'm not going to go into all the details on the mystery, but it's quite clever in some ways. The mystery in this story is quite clever. I like the way it builds, so it builds quite naturally. It doesn't feel forced. It feels very organic. In some mysteries, I think there's little things that happen. When the mystery develops, sometimes it jolts. It doesn't go like a gradual curve, a gradual wave through the story. Sometimes it jolts. It feels like, it goes up and down a bit. Very sharp angles, I think, in some mysteries, if you put it like that. This mysteries, there's no sharp angles. It feels quite smooth, quite gradual. It feels quite natural. So I enjoy the way it builds up in the story. Was the villain too easy to pick in this mystery? For some people, it may be. I thought it was well done though. I had my suspicions in the story. I wasn't sure 100%, but I had suspicions. So I don't know, it's a good mystery. I think there's twists and turns in the story. There's red herrings. I think it's well developed. So I don't know if people will pick who the culprit is too early on. Leave it up to the readers, I think. Police procedure in this book leaves a lot to be desired. A lot of things happen in this story, and I thought, well, even in a cozy mystery, police procedure should be pretty accurate, I think. The biggest example I can think of in this story where police procedure went a bit haywire is when the three characters, Alice and Violet and Ruby, go back to Ruby's house when they first find out about Ruby's husband. They're allowed in the house, and somehow they're allowed into the crime scene where Ruby's husband's body is lying there on the floor. I mean, what kind of police procedure would allow that? Doesn't make sense in this story. So I think even in a cozy mystery, police procedure needs to be accurate, just to give that realism to the story. On the cozy side of things, there are things going on. We have a love interest for Alice, our protagonist. His name's Stone Donahue, and he runs a senior centre nearby. And they're connected because she likes jigsaw puzzles, the senior centre likes jigsaw puzzles, and they swap jigsaw puzzles a lot in the story. That's their connection. That's their first connection, I think, in the story. But other things on the cozy side, look, I didn't love the characters in this story. I enjoyed them. They were engaging. I don't love them yet as characters. Maybe in future books in this series, if there are future books, and I would read future books in this series, mind you, in those future books, I think I would love the characters more. I wanted to see different angles about those characters. I want to see, I guess, different grey areas, different emotions. In some of the characters in this story, it seemed quite vibrant and loud, maybe too vibrant and loud, especially with the subject matter and the mystery going on. I just think sometimes that emotional balance in the characters kind of didn't suit the situation and the setting. And my final thought, just quickly on the three main characters, is they reminded me of the Golden Girls, you know, the TV show The Golden Girls. Because at a certain point in this series, Ruby, Violet, and Alice are living under the same roof. And Alice reminds me of Dorothy in The Golden Girls. Ruby reminds me of Blanche. And Violet reminds me of Rose. And that connection was quite strong in my mind. In fact, when I was reading dialogue in this story, I kept reading the dialogue and hearing the voices from the Golden Girls in my head. That's how strong that connection was for me. I don't mind that because I love the Golden Girls TV show, so that connection's quite a joyful connection, I think, for me in the story. But I just wonder about that. Will other readers read this book and think the same thing? I don't know. Maybe just me. So first off, Alice, our main protagonist. She works at a library. I think the head librarian in that library branch in the town. She's a good character. I don't love the character yet. She reminds me of Dorothy from The Golden Girls. I think it's her pushy nature. Something about her attitude sometimes in the story reminds me about Dorothy, like that strong connection I have with that character on that TV show. She's loyal, she's caring, she's quite emotional sometimes in the story, I think, as well. But I think she's quite strong as well. I like her inquisitive nature, I like the way she's nosy in the story. You need a main character in a cozy mystery who's quite nosy, sticks her nose in a lot, or his nose in a lot, and Alice does that in spades. Violet is Alice's sister, lives in the same house, is the vice principal, and reminds me of Rose from the Golden Girls TV show. In this book, Violet believes in the esoteric, things like tarot cards, spirits, that sort of thing. Alice doesn't. So Violet and Alice are quite different. That's a good thing, I think, in this book, to have these sister characters who are different personalities, kind of different interests. The way they talk, the way they carry themselves in the story is quite different. I enjoyed that. That difference in the story makes a lot, because sometimes when you have characters from the same family, even mother and daughter characters, brother and sister, whatever you have in a story, sometimes they feel very similar. And I like the fact they feel different in this book. But again, with this character, I can't say I love the character yet. The character is engaging. I enjoy reading about Violet in this story. I don't love the character yet, but I do expect that in future books in this series, that will change. I'd like to see more about Violet, just more parts of her, because I think so far in this book I get a little bit about Violet and not all the surface. I kind of get one dimension sometimes. Ruby is Alice's best friend in this book and reminds me a lot of Blanche from The Golden Girls. She's loud, she's flamboyant, she's colourful. Just the way her clothes are described as well reminds me of Blanche from The Golden Girls. The thing about Ruby, though, is in this book I think she's too flamboyant and too loud, especially around scenarios and settings around the murder of her husband and being a suspect in that murder. I would have thought a bit more emotional range, I thought, around that. Just seemed to be quite this loud and vibrant character still going on. It doesn't change at all. So for me, that was a shame. And again, I don't love the character yet. In future books, I might. I think we need just more light and shade with this character in the series. For the first book in the series, it is quite strong. I rate this a 3.5 out of 5. The best thing about this, I think, is the way the mystery builds. The way it's this slow curve, the way it just feels natural. There's no sudden jolts, there's no sudden ups and downs in that mystery. It develops strongly and stays strong, and I enjoyed that. That's the best thing I think about this book. The characters are engaging. I don't love them yet. They are fun and enjoyable, but I do suspect in future books in this series I'll get to enjoy those characters more and maybe even love those characters more as well. I hope that happens, and I do hope there's future books in this series because I would read more books in this series. On my channel I review many cozy mysteries. If you enjoy cozy mysteries, check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.